This from Jason Q. Jason Q writes, Kevin, it's over. It's way over. Sorry to tell you. Have you watched Seattle, Detroit, Denver? They won't win any of their next 3 games. 3 out of the next 4, LOL. I've been saying they have to win 3 out of the next 4. They should be big sellers at the deadline. Look, I have watched Seattle, I have watched Detroit, and I have watched Denver. And I would agree, all 3 of those teams actually are better teams than Washington. They are. Seattle's 5-2, and they have looked great. Phenomenal on defense, so well coached defensively. The addition, obviously, of Sam Darnold gave them a quarterback that is playing at that level that he played at last year. Now, Darnold is prone to, a head-scratching mistake or 3 in a game. But they've got, running backs in Kenneth Walker III and Zach Charbonnet. And you want to see what an elite wide receiver coming into his own looks like. Watch Jackson Smith-Njigba. 50 catches already on the season, 819 yards, 4 touchdowns, averaging 16 and a half yards per reception. He's uncheckable. They also have Cooper Kupp, who's now, 35 years old or whatever he is. And they've got a decent offensive line. They are nasty defensively. There's also some health issues defensively. We'll see what that looks like on Sunday. But, Jason, I'm counting on home field meaning something. I'm counting on the return of Jaden Daniels to mean something. Yes, they're going to be, somebody mentioned this to me last week, and it turns out I think you're going to be right, although we'll see what happens with the line as we approach game day, and the information on Daniels becomes more, I think, official. Quinn said yesterday, do you have that sound right now on Jaden Daniels?
Yeah,
Max?
his practice plan?
Yeah, just real quickly on Jaden Daniels, let everybody know what Quinn said yesterday in his day after game press conference.
Real quick on the injuries with Jaden, do you have a plan for him for this week?
Yeah, of course we have a plan. So yeah, he had a good rehab session on days are screwed up on Sunday. Team's back out at practice tomorrow, and we plan on him being a part of that.
So practice today, he's planning for Jaden to be a part of that. I hope that means full go today. And if that is a full go today, then we know he is planning, Quinn is planning for Jaden to start on Sunday. And I think that even with that, it's possible Washington could be a slight favorite by game time. They are a 3-point underdog right now with the news unknown about Jaden Daniels. We saw what happened last week when he was ruled out. I mean, the line jumped from basically 5.5 to 13. It really was going to be around 7, and it went 13. Came back a little bit before game time. But somebody mentioned to me last week, they're going to be underdogs in all 3 of those games at home. And I said, I don't know. I think Seattle and Denver, there's a chance they could be favored in both of those games. I don't know that Jaden's official return will move it in Washington's favor. It'll move the number for sure. How much it moves it, we'll see. They'll be an underdog to Detroit. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They're going to be an underdog to the Lions. The Lions, remember, this coming weekend, they play the Vikings this coming weekend, and then it's Washington, Philly, Giants in a row. Cowboys 2 weeks after that. They basically play the NFC East in 5 weeks. 4 games against the NFC East with a Thanksgiving Day game against Green Bay in between. But the Denver situation, yeah, they could be. Whoever wrote that to me or whoever said that, you could be right. They could be underdogs in all 3. And back to Jason, yeah, it's in play that they lose the next 3. They're playing 3 all-around teams that are better. Seattle's got a better team. Detroit's got a better team. Denver's got a better team. Washington will be at home, and they will have, hopefully, the better quarterback in these games. And so that goes a long way, as we know. So I'm counting on Jaden and a healthy Jaden. And with Terry hopefully back, we're going to get more news on him today from Quinn. A little bit concerned about that one for sure. But a healthier team for this stretch is paramount. Paramount. They don't have a shot without Daniels. And they don't have a very good chance without Daniels against these three teams, given the moment, which is they got to win two of these three and then beat Miami as well, without a healthy enough roster. Terry, Debo, Tunsil, Kinlaw. They need all of those things to come together. There is no doubt about that. Yeah. I mentioned something yesterday that took some people back. I think I was actually surprised, and we'll have calls today on the show. We've got two guests, by the way, lined up. Eric Edholm from NFL.com and the NFL Network will join us at 11. We'll talk league stuff, other teams. We'll talk some Washington as well. And then Mark Zuckerman, I've been, texting back and forth with him during these baseball games. He's going to jump on with us at 11:35 to get more into what happened on Monday night, because I know a lot of our audience turned the TV off after Monday Night Football and missed truly maybe the greatest postseason baseball game in history. And so we will talk to Zuck about that at 11:35. We've got NFL buy and sell today, but I'm going to give you guys a chance, especially those of you who did not get a chance to weigh in yesterday on the Kansas City loss. We'll open up phones. But I talked about, for me, that there was a sign, I thought, of what they've been trying to build, culture-wise, with the players, with the staff, with the overall vibe. I loved the way they competed. I know that sounds overly simple to some of you, and there's a lot of eye-rolling with some of you. I know many of you felt the same way, and Quinn said it, and by the way, Mahomes said it. Mahomes said this was a team that came out firing on all cylinders, and we couldn't match their energy, or we didn't match their energy in the first half. I was listening to Von Miller on the Junkies this morning talk about how they really felt good about the first half. They felt great about practice and felt great about the game. That's what I'm talking about. Jim B wrote me and just said, culture, 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 and then has an emoji, or a video of somebody sticking their finger down their throat to vomit. Win games, that's all that matters. Yeah, it is all that matters ultimately. But to win games and to win games consistently, you've got to have a decent culture. Look, I'm comparing it to the past. I get that. I understand that. The past is, one of the true jokes of an organization in sports of all time that never had a culture, and they've had to build one from scratch, and I think they've done a terrific job. I just thought the game Monday night represented who Quinn and the people that Quinn have and Adam Peters, the people that they've brought in. That was a double-digit underdog, no chancer for any NFL fan watching throughout the country. Now, we know in the NFL, anything can happen. And at halftime, it looked like, wow, it's going to be one of those anything can happen on any given Sunday or any given Monday night, because they were very much legitimately in the game and should have had the lead. They were the better team in the first half. But like we talked about yesterday, games aren't 30 minutes, they're 60 minutes. And our team didn't have Patrick Mahomes, and their team did. But I thought really ultimately it was about, it was something that has, at least in my mind's eye, some carryover. Like, I don't fear this team folding. 2 years ago, we were in the midst of one of the all-time tanks of all time. Rivera completely lost that 2023 team. They continued to trot out Sam Howell, who was terrible, and by the way, has really not gotten a shot since. Is he on a roster? I don't even know if he's on a roster anymore. He should be on a roster. I think he's capable of being a backup. But remember how that season just went from one blowout after another. And thank God the one close game against the Jets, we got the missed field goal by Zerline at the gun or the made field goal, by Zerline at the gun to lose that game, or we wouldn't have Jaden Daniels. But that's not, I don't see that happening ever with a Dan Quinn team. Now, I haven't gone back and looked at the Atlanta teams in that last year that started 0-5. Remember, he got fired at 0-5 in that last year. So he didn't have a chance to resurrect a season that had gone terribly wrong. It was the 2020 season. He was replaced, by the way, by Raheem Morris, who is the current Atlanta coach. And they started 0-5, and he got fired. And every single one of those games was close, including the last game that he coached was a 7-point loss. They lost by 4. They lost by 1. They got beat by double digits to Seattle and Green Bay, but those were a little bit earlier. Raheem Morris, by the way, came in and won his first game as the interim coach that year, beating the Minnesota Vikings 40-23. Anyway, I just think that we got a different vibe here and different people, and there are adults. And they've, signed players that they view as more adult-like. And I thought it was a tremendous effort. It's not good enough. I get it. They got to win games. That's what they're judged on. But to me, I think, the thing I worry about is what Ian actually, DM'd me, and it's not that far off from being true a lot of the times. Sometimes you can empty the tank in a game like that and you lose it, and it really has some carryover effect, especially on a short week. But I'll count on the fact that the most important player for Washington didn't play in the game. And so there isn't going to be a tank emptying situation for number 5 on Sunday night. But he's going to have to lift all boats over this next stretch. And I do feel like the game against Seattle feels, even though I've said 3 of the next 4, and if they lose to Seattle, they could then win the next 3. They could, but that would look bleak if they fall to 3-6. They got to beat Seattle at home on Sunday night. You got to have a home field advantage, too. It's got to be a legitimate lift-em-up home field advantage. This has to be one of those games way back in the day. Team might have lost a game or 2, and they came back home, and it was, as Coach Joe would say, all 55,000 had to be there, and there was elevation from that home crowd. That has to be the situation. It's Sunday Night Football. They're trotting out the championship uniforms for this one. I'm going to, observe what the helmet looks like, but I'll feel like I'm rooting for my team. And this has to be, a rough night and a tough night for Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks when they're on offense. Of course, it would help if our defense had the capability of consistently stopping teams. But crowd and crowd noise can be a big deal Sunday night. And this is desperation time. The season isn't over. And I'm not ready to sell, Jason. But to his point, there's one more game before the trade deadline. We are, 6 days away from the trade deadline. Last year, they bought. This year, we'll see. Maybe Sunday night will be a big tell on what happens.